So to summarize what I was saying in the first part, the CRM is to be situated under some consideration in the domain of high-level foundational ontologies, because it provides concepts which are very high level. What is time? What is an event? What are objects? How are they related to space? And so on. On the other side, if you give a closer look to the domain which it models, it is cultural heritage, not history in general. And as you know, in cultural heritage, there are also aspects which are more material, more related to the natural world, physical objects, property. And from the point of view of data integration, this is very important, not data production. Normally, when we use our research information systems, we are in the perspective of domain related or subdomain, underdomain related, very specific data production. Also, I forgot, but I think Georg probably mentioned this, or the other colleagues, we have to distinguish between general concepts or classes for modeling the world, this I'm speaking about, and types, taxonomies, control vocabularies for speaking about types in the sense of concepts for classifying things like type of places. These are two different things in the perspective of CRM, of the CIDOC CRM, and my perspective in this talk. These are instances of some general classes like the class type that you see there. You see always my slide, yes?
Yes,
my slides are there. Yes.
Okay. We see the slides.
Okay, so you have the types, and all the instances are all the thesauri, you know, like the Getty, place types, thesauro, and so on. So, because I am in the position I am, as you heard, and I have to evaluate the ontology that we use for, because I do not make the same mistake that I made with Simoji, which was not considering foundational ontologies before using. Now I know you should. So I take Dolce and I try to evaluate the CRM. And this is foreseen in domain and situations, because you can take whatever ground ontology you want. You put the epistemological layer on top. So you can take the CRM and analyze. Important to know is we are speaking here, this is the lower level that you see, about two kinds of entities that we are talking about in the world. The one is the one of persons, organization, places, objects, and so on. These entities are called in philosophy endurance. These are the persistent items in the CRM, as we will see. This entity have a clear identity through time, from the moment they exist to the moment they stop to exist. You can recognize the identity of this entity, and it's always the same, the identity. But the qualities change, because first you are a baby, then you are a young man, then you are an old man, and so on. So these are the endurance. And then you have the perdurance. This is what happens in time. And this is this change, continuous change in the flux of history. Yes, this is the change. This is the first important thing to distinguish. And the second important thing to distinguish is, or to know is, if you apply Dolce, this foundational ontology, is that a perdurant is only given if you have participants, because the basic relationship, as you see on this slide, is PC, participation. We, physical things like ourselves, participate in perdurance, in events. Perdurance are events. We speak, we decide, take decisions, we read, we walk, and so on. And this, the temporal, spatial temporal phenomenon is the perdurant. And what you are is the endurant. Can be physical, or, as we are humans, conceptual, non-physical. So, important to see, there are perdurance involving endurance with a projection in space and time. If you go to the CIDOC CRM, and we will see this on the other side, but I first state it. This is the basic view. You have temporal entities, but these temporal entities, what are they? What are they? This is the first very important question in the point of view of foundational ontologies. Are they really perdurants, as the definition in CRM says? In my opinion, it's not the case, and it's very relevant for us. Because only at the level of events, and I will show you that is true what I'm saying, you find the space and the participating people, objects, and so on. You go down the hierarchy, we will give a look. So first element, just first statement, is it correct to say that perdurants are, that temporal entities are perdurants? You will ask me why I care about this. You will see. Take this for the moment. The second important point is the CRM basically models first the physical world. There is a reason, you will see. The social world is modeled in a second stage, in a way. In history, it's the opposite. First, we model the social world, and then, of course, it happens in the natural world, the social world. But history about social life. It's not about, otherwise, it's natural history. Okay, if you take, for instance, an example from your database, which is Alexander Bach, various state minister. Sorry, I forgot to put it in English. So this Mr. Alexander Bach was Minister of Justice in the, how do you say, in the cabinet of Wessenberg in those years. So you have different elements. You have the person, you have the group, which is the cabinet, you have the leader, and you have the role, yes? This is very difficult to model in CRM. But our databases are full of this. The colleagues in Vienna have modeled this, and they speak about this probably later or never, but anyway, they have modeled this correctly, doing what you can. We will come back to this probably a little bit later, and I think Georg will also speak about this in the next talk. But in fact, you have to have a kind of patches to use the CRM to model this or to express this. And this is not accidental. This is fundamental, because if you read what Martin Doerr writes and says, and I had a lot of discussions with him, the conception of the CRM excludes phases, situations, like membership, ownership. It's excluded. Because for the sake of interoperability, the focus is on events defined as changes from one situation to another one. The CIDOC CRM does not include a general construct to model time periods during which certain properties are static. This means like membership. In this time period, you are a member. Only the more specific notion of condition state, we will see where it is there. Okay, but it's about building being in ruins. All the rest does not exist. You cannot model states. If you want to model the participation, you have to use these reified properties like PC 144 for the experts, because the states are excluded. And this approach was inspired by considerations of modern physics, which consider events as complex interactions with non-negligible temporal lengths, and so on and so on. So because of this, as you see, approach, epistemological approach, and you will not find in the CRM important concepts that historians usually need because it's excluded per se. That's why we, and even if the last sentence says that this you can apply to history, I don't know who of the present historians would accept this. That we do not speak anymore about phases, memberships, ownership. We speak just about buying things, becoming member, and the rest disappears from the database. For me and for my colleagues, it's impossible. You need the phases. You need both. Both are both aspects of the same. Okay, this is the point. So you need extension. And you could start this extension from scratch. You could merge all the existing factoids types and the Simoji types and so on. Your own types. For this, we need a discussion. That's why we created the platform I'll show you, which is called OntoME, because we cannot do this in the air. We need a community of people sharing this need and producing the classes and properties which are missing and producing them possibly in a way which is satisfactory for the domain, for all the databases. And then you know that if I say this, I mean different degrees of specialization, because there will be people with needs which are limited and people with needs which are extended. So you cannot have one model for everything if you are in the perspective of data production. And secondly, you have to model situations. But what are they? What are they? Okay. These situations are, last word in the theory, in the most cases, social constructs, intentional constructs, membership, ownership, all these kind of things are mental, conventional aspects. So strictly speaking, they are not perdurance because they are not in the geographical space. They are in the social space. Because you are a member, and it's not important if you are here where I am in Vienna or wherever. A member, it's not dependent on space. That's why the colleagues in Italy developed descriptions and situations, because Dolce, if it models perdurance, it doesn't model social space. We need social space modeling. Okay, so we need to add this, because in the CRM, you do not find it. You find it on one aspect, I'll show you, but in a way that it's usable for museum and data integration, but for us, it's not usable. So if you take this without extension, you cannot use the CRM for history. It's evident. If you analyze the foundational aspects of the thing, yes, of course, if you do not care, you do what you want, yes? But if you go the straight way, you think about this, you cannot use it. So you have to extend it. I'll show how. That's why we propose to have a community, which is called Data for History. And we have an application, which is called OntoME. I will show it to you, which does not produce from magics and the extension, but which is the place where we can produce the extension. There is another extension which is under development. And it is CRM Social. I will show all this now. But there is a small issue. I speak about it later. So now you understand why I had the idea to start Data for History, because otherwise I cannot sit down and produce myself the whole extension. This would be stupid. I need other colleagues to discuss with, and you are these colleagues if you're interested, having databases, having real problems, trying to modeling things and so on, and then sharing this conceptualization and seeing if it's sound, and then experts in logic and helping us to find a way, consistent way of doing things and so on. this is the vision. Now I try to switch my screen and let's hope that everything functions like it should. Okay, and I need this. Okay, so you see now the documentation of the talk.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. If you click on ontology management environment, you land to this application. I'll speak about this in 5 minutes. First, before you criticize something, as I'm not criticizing in a way, but I am trying to understand if the CIDOC CRM is suitable for myself as historian, okay? Before you do this, you have to learn. So you learn here, you discover, learn, and so on. I don't know if you see enough, if it's too small on the screen. Probably it's better like this. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Wonderful, thank you. Where is the CRM? Here is the CRM, compatible models. So if you go here first, you will be on a page where you have all the versions. So one difficult thing always is you do not know exactly what you see here. So good to know the ISO norm is, as far as I remember, the last ISO norm is the 501, if I remember correctly. One of the fives here. I don't know exactly which point. Secondly, as you see, if you open here, which most people do not open, please do not use draft versions. Now I'm speaking in the name of the SIG. Use just published version. Do not take other ones because they are not published. Then the last one published, and there is a mistake, unfortunately here, is not this one, but it is the 6, this is the last version. And you have the RDF. It's the last for which you have the RDF. This is the last published version. So you want to learn the CRM, go to the tutorial of Stephen Stead, very good tutorial in my opinion. And no, this is the last published version. All the rest you do not have to care. If you are an expert, you can also go to the mailing list of the SIG, to the discussions, the issues, and so on, and you see how things happen. Okay, if you go here and go for the issues, I just telling you this is a community, it's a living community. There are things which happen and so on, and you are invited to participate if you're interested. And if you hear, sorry for doing this, but it's the way, the easiest way, if you go for my name, then you find, for instance, here, a discussion about this issue of situations, time-related situations. A whole discussion about this, as you see, in the last years. Because we had an intensive discussion and we decided to exclude this from the CRM and to put it in an extension. Because we have to respect, on the one side, the consistency, the ontological consistency of the CRM, its scope, and on the other side, we need this as historians. Okay, that's for saying that things move and develop and so on. And the second point is you have here the extensions, compatible models and collaboration, the family. So it's important to know it is like TI. You have the core and you have the extensions. But unfortunately, it is not, I'm sorry to say this, so well managed as TI. So the consistency in TI between the models and the object modeling in the TI is not given. So you take one thing here, beware, careful, because you must align versions, you must know, okay, one of the most important is this one, which merges the world of the libraries with the world of museums. Wonderful, very powerful, also for conceptualizing books, works, ideas in the books, and so on. Very powerful. But beware, because you take a version, take the published one, it's an older one. Now there is a brand new one which will be published. So this is a whole world which needs more people working in this to have more consistency, because it's a huge task. You have to align things. And the last point on this is, if you have only this, although you have some places here, and I provided you the link, where you can see things moving a little bit, otherwise you just have PDFs. So read the PDF, see that the class this and that is the pointing to this other class in the other extension, and then to the other extension. You get mad. It's impossible. That's why we produced OntoME. The last word about this aspect. So the CRM is not easy to be accessed as such. It's very robust, very interesting, but not easy to be accessed. I don't know, my colleagues here having tried to use it, what they would say about this point. And here you will discover there is even now a new extension for social life. And if you take the PDF, which I will not do, you will be probably surprised if you see who will manage this extension. Okay, but the problem is you cannot, dear colleagues, dear students, you cannot model the whole social world 3 or 4 people. Yes, you need a community for doing this. Otherwise, you do not model an ontology. Yes, so the very important point is always to know, in all the databases, information system that you will manage, you will try to implement models that you share with others, so that in the end, you do not have the problem of the colleague Schulz and other colleagues trying to put things together with different models. It's better to start together and then extend for your needs, but not having everything and then try to put it together, because this provides headache. Okay, for all these reasons, my lab in Lyon, my colleagues, myself, decided to create OntoME. OntoME is a place where you can do different things, and you have here the use cases. Very shortly, the use cases. First use case is learning. Learning. You go there, you learn. You see what is there. And OntoME is neutral. It's a generic ontology management environment. It is not a software like Protégé. It's an online platform. You do not download it and use it. You use it here in the platform. As soon as it is minimum viable product, it will be open source. But I mean, with the time which it means, probably they'll be retired. Okay, but this said, which takes 10 years, yes? So, okay, but you can work here, and it's neutral. But on the other sense, we did this for learning and spreading the use of the CIDOC CRM, because we think, as historians, it's useful. So you, in the public access that you have now, you will see the CIDOC CRM and the family, what exists of it. Learning. The second aspect is you can go to the market, take the 5 classes and 20 properties you need, which we call an application profile, and use it for your information system. I just mentioned this because this talk is about modeling and not about this kind of application. You can even extend the CRM, creating new classes. So a project can produce new classes and then take the help of the experts, the community, and discuss it and see if it's interesting. And we have different projects working on this, and you can see in the documentation of the talk, and a couple of examples. There are 2 posters that we presented. You will find them down here somewhere. Here, the posters. So you can have an idea. And you're very welcome, should I forget to say this, to participate here. You can get in touch with myself, my colleague in Lyon, Vincent Lamercerie. We can train you in fall, yes. Before summer, it's impossible, but in fall, things will be more mature, and we can work with this. We do trainings and so on, if you're interested. And also participate in this Data for History consortium. The basic idea being an ontology is a shared conceptualization. If you do not share it, it's not an ontology. Okay, Now let's discover first the CRM, then the extension, which we could design. You have a public access, and you see just normally this. If you create an account, which is free, and it's just about more robustly storing metadata than you would do with cookies, you can customize the application and see what you want. Okay, see, now you see we are in the CRM world, and the CRM world models, I don't know, you see something on my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Here you see two very big different things. Primitive values, which are numbers, characters, and so on, and all the CRM entities. And you see CRM, yes, conceptual reference model, E1, the class of the entities. And the important is the E1, this identifies the class. The label is just a label, and more important are, as I said, the definition, the scope note, and the properties. If you want to understand a class, you forget the label, you read the definition, and give a look to the properties. Okay. Unfortunately, on this first level, you have everything. You have things that, according to Dolce, let me go back here, are abstracts, regions in space, abstracts, regions. This is a region in space, a region in time, and so on. This is outside of the important part, which are concepts. So place, in this concept, in this context, place is not geographical place in the sense of the place where you sit now, you can take picture of. It's the geometry representing you now on this place. Place in CRM is the geometry. According to Dolce, it's an abstract, okay? But all these things are at the same first level. More relevant are the persistent item. These are all the objects, the persons, the institutions, and so on. And the temporal entities, the events, the time, okay? I'll come back later to the persistent items. Just you see this distinction between actors, active, and thing, immaterial. I mean not non-intentional there. And then you can go down, and we'll see in a minute how it works. But to remain at our first question, which I raised about situations and events, here you have the condition state class. The condition state class is the one which is mentioned on this slide, this one, telling us that the only situation the CRM speaks about is a building being in ruin. Cultural heritage, it's normal, and you want a confirmation, you can read the scope note, the definition, you can give a look to the properties, you will see that it's about physical things, and always read carefully the definitions, it's the prevailing physical condition. It's not any, it's a prevailing. This is the only situation we have. Do not tell me, yes, but in the science extension, you have state. Because this is an extension, different color, different identifier, and this is pure epistemology of representation of scientific, in the sense of natural science, observations. This is the state of a liquid where you have floating bodies at a given moment. Yeah, so forget it. This you do not care, because I see people using this because it's there. So read, please. It's like, as I said, yes, it's a solution. Okay. Then you have belief inference. This is another word which is not directly related to our problem today. And then the very important concept is period, because here starts time, period. And then from period, you have events. And here you have the event in Ferber, which is the bibliography. So we consider just at the moment the blue points. This is CRM core. And then you have, or base. And then you have the other colors are what is around in the family. And when you see the event, you have then the beginning of existence, end of existence, activity, and alteration in science. Okay, so let's give a look to event, the scope note. This class comprises, so I'm showing you also how you discover the CRM. You open the class, you read the scope note, you give a look to the properties, and then you know what's about. And some examples, but the examples must be used carefully, because the example can also be example taken from the subclasses, which came here up to say, this as general class is also this. But it's not defined for this, it's defined for a subclass. So be careful. Important is the scope note and the properties. And here you see the properties defined, specifically defined for this class. So, event. This class comprises changes of states in cultural, social, and political systems, regardless of scale. Can be 1 minute, a point, can be a whole period activity. And it's the event in the sense of change, as I said. It's not a situation, it's change. Situations are excluded. So, okay, no, but it's not possible. I go back and I look for situations here. Okay. No, there is no situation. And what is the period? The period is like a huge event, a civilization, a moment in time. And Ming Dynasty, McCarthy era, all the things that happened. Okay, and the property here is, the most relevant property is, on the one side, the geometrical one took place at, which means is projected on this geometry, or took place on, which means it happened on that mountain. If you take the picture of the murder of Jacob attempted in the Bible, Jacob, I don't know, I'm sure, but it's a murder in the Bible on the mountain, you have to take took place on, and the mountain is a physical object. So the geographical place intended as a place that you can take a picture of is a physical thing. Place is just a geometry. You can use it, but it's a geometry. Here comes in the CRM space, geographical space. In the hierarchy, geographical space does not come at the level of temporal entity. It comes at the level of period. From here on, you can speak about space. And if you open this, you know, in event, you have the space. What you do not have in period are the endurance, the people. You cannot associate people to a period. Period is just a phenomenon in space and time. In the event, you have the people, the things, the actors participating, and the thing present there. So in the event, taken strictly, in the event, you have the perdurant, according to Dolce, because according to Dolce, the perdurant is a relationship between endurance, people, things, happening in time and space. So the real important class in this sense is event. This is true. This slide is true. Here you have actors participating in. I'm not criticizing. I'm showing you how you methodologically discover the CIDOC CRM. Scope notes, properties. Okay, but now you will tell me, oh. I hope, sorry, I have to find very quickly something which is hidden by Zoom, which I will have to hide for 1 second. Okay, because I wanted to do the demonstration like this. This Zoom is hiding what I need. Okay, I got it here. Okay. So now you will tell me, oh, but in event, I do not see time in the properties. Where is the time? Okay, go to period. Oh, in period, there is no time. Okay. So, although we speak about all these things, and also, I don't know, certainly some of you at least, or everyone knows periodo and the time gazetteers, they model periods. These relative, like Italian Renaissance, European Bronze Age, and so on, they are often modeled using CRM or according or in relationship to period, CRM period. Okay, time comes at the level of the temporal entity. So the temporal entity has all the properties about time. It relates to time as time span, defined with a duration and with borders, inner bounds, outer bounds, and all the relativity, the Allen properties. So it's very consistent, very interesting. You now understand, here you come in the temporality, here, temporal entity. Here you have the persistent items. They are not directly linked to time. They participate in temporal entities. Temporal entities is event in CRM. Sorry, perdurance is event in CRM. It's space, time, people in there, and endurance are the people, the places, and so on. Okay, so this you find at this level. If you are at the level of temporal entity, you just have the time. If you go to the period, you have the space. And if you go to the event, you have the people. And from there it begins. And because of property inheritance, event inherits time from temporal entity and space from period. And now you will tell me, yes, but I do not see it here. That's why we have here the properties, and you have the properties defined for this class and the properties inherited from other classes. And so you discover that an event has virtually all these other properties about time, relationship, and so on. Okay, then you go down, discover the whole world. Okay, now let's see the last point here and then add what is missing, and then my time is over. And we can have 10 minutes for questions. Now, let's assume that you want to model, on the one side, being member of a ministerium or having a social role, being member of a cabinet and or having ownership, property of something. And there is an issue of your quality as Minister of Foreign Affairs, of being a member of something, like member of CNRS, like myself, or owning the laptop is my own. This object, this thing is my laptop. Okay. In CRM, if you want to model property, you have legal objects, and legal objects as a class, which is a kind of abstract, encapsulates property. If you go to the legal object, you will find just rights. Because you cannot, in the perspective of CRM, have ideas in your property. You can have rights on ideas, but not properties. Always, I'm showing you how you discover the CRM. How am I able to state this? Very simple. I go to legal object. Legal object is an object which has on it rights. A legal object is an object subject to right. This is the intersection between OL and UML. You have the scope node, which defines things, and the fact that it has this property, it makes it this. It makes it something on which you have rights. And of course, you have legal things are the rights, and the actors having these rights. But here is no time. It's timeless. You cannot put the time. Why? Because it is not a temporal entity. A legal object is a persistent item. It's an endurance. So no way of expressing property. If you want to express, property, sorry, you go down to physical thing. If you go to physical thing, then you find the property as former or current owner. This property says this object is now or was the property of this actor. Actor is a human being or an institution, organization. No possibility of having time. The same would be for social roles, but this is modeled differently. And it is the example that I showed you using the data provided by the awesome colleagues. This, you have not the situation of being member or having this role. You have not it in the CRM. You have only the event making you member. So if you go here, you go to beginning of existence, you open it, you find beginning of existence, production, creating, is this here? I assume. Otherwise, you can, I do not remember how it is called, this joining, I think, joining, okay. This is also a nice feature. You can find things where they are. Only you should not lose. Okay, so joining is an activity, of course. So, sorry for forgetting that. So an activity, you find the joining under activity, joining, leaving, acquisition. These are all the moments when you take the things. But often in history, you do not know this. Or in some project, you are not interested in this. You are interested in snapshots of time with properties. So, of course, you can calculate this. But if you do not have the information, why produce events when you do not have the information? Just for not having the events of situations, and so on and so on. Okay. So now I will make visible for the moment, but it will be hidden afterwards because it's not yet ready, and I can show how it works OntoME. I can add here, I hope I'm still logged in, the namespace that we are developing, and will be, as I said, I hope more or less ready at this level in fall, because we need it for our project. This is an extension for historical work, and as I also said, we do not develop this because we believe we are the only ones able to do this, but because we want to propose it to the discussion of the community and see, and here you are connected, you can add things to your project that you can see them. And for instance, you're not interested in all the stuff about archaeology, excavation, and science, you can take it away. You will not see it anymore in OntoME. Okay, so now we are here, we make a reset. You can also do the reset on your side if you wish. So first thing to be noticed is that all these things here are regions. Yes, if you apply places, day span, time spans are regions, abstract regions. They do not have qualities. They are like from now 5 seconds. Okay, more important here, you have always them, but the relevant aspects are here. If you combine the CRM with description and situations, and if you reread the CRM and extend it in a public extension, which is also published in RDF, and that you can quote in your data and exists and is stable, which is, we hope, will be at least in a first stage robust in autumn, then you can have new classes. And what are these new classes? These new classes are defined applying the foundational perspective of all the publications around descriptions and situations which model social life. There is a lot of work done already there, which is published in all these publications. I have only 4, I think, here, or even only 2, but there are 20 or more, yes? And there is a whole literature on this issue of how modeling social life. Also, all this literature has to be considered if we want to produce this extension, CRM social, of course, because this exists in the world and we cannot speak about these things without knowing all this. To stay here where we are, you see a social situation is modeled at the same level as period. Why? Because a social situation, like being member or ownership, these are situations, they exist only in the social space, only in the space of discourse. They do not have a relationship, a direct one, to a place in the world. Of course, the house that you own is situated, but this is another issue. It's not the issue of the property. So this is a new high-level class that we should add as historians if we want to speak about all these things like situations in social life, being member of a ministry, of cabinet, and so on and so on. These are relationships between things. They are situated in the time, so they inherit all the time. But they are in the hierarchy at a level, a conceptual level, where they do not inherit space. Space is just provided by the participants. And it involves relationship, social. If you take a characteristic of an entity, this is just one entity, not relationship. So you have here, again, it's modeled according to Dolce and DNS, and this is about qualities. Qualities are inherent to entities. It's you that are professor, it's you that are minister, and this is the content of your quality is the social definition of being minister in this country. And you are this at that time. So this is modeled here. Entity, time indexed, entity characteristic. This can be about having no hairs, a lot of hairs, green hairs, and so on. This is physical ones. social ones, intellectual ones, and so on. These are time index qualities of entities. I finish in 1.5 minutes, yes? Then you can have geographical localizations, all the kind of things which are situations for one entity, and there you would also have a relationship to space. Then you have the social situation, as said, things which exist only in the social space, and that could replace this modeling if accepted, if there is a community using it, because if no one uses it, you go on like this. But if once a community uses this new extension, then you could use it for expressing these kind of things. And the last thing is, so you say ownership, membership, and so on. And then even in the events, there is something which is called phase, but it's different because this is very specific thing, which is not a situation in a way, but it's a complex relationship. Like the human being life is a phase. It's the relationship for all these things. It's Dolce definition of this. Or I have a social relationship with someone. And how does this happen? I meet him, I speak with him, and so on. And then the quality of this social relationship can be during a different period, shorter one. It's the same relationship in the sense of ontology, but the quality is we are colleague, work colleague, then we are friends, then something happens, we are enemies. These are the qualities treated here, time indexed, of these relationships. So I do not know if this is the right way, absolutely seen to do things. I do not know if it will be adopted. But I wanted to show this to you because if we want to model and conceptualize the data that we put into our prosopographical databases, we need something like this. And the only way that I know myself, but probably other people know other ways, is to have a community that share these visions and try to use common tools for conceptual modeling, yes? And then you will learn also these days that you can align instances, control vocabularies, and so on. This is very important. But the very important thing in the sense of data interoperability, of FAIR principles, is to share a common conceptualization of the domain. Voilà.
May I try to ask a question? I'm not sure I've understood how does the sources fit into the model of the CRM or Dolce also?
Can you add one statement to make your question more precise? The sources fit is quite general. Yes, I can imagine what you want to ask, but I would prefer that you.
For example, I was very interested when I discovered the first time the CMOG model because it considered the fact that historical knowledge is built on the sources and discussing about the sources. And I can't see that in the CRM. I don't know if it's me that I don't get it or there's a problem in that sense.
There would be one answer which is not Francesco's answer. That would be answered from Michele Pasini. Read the paper of Michele and John Bradley, 2012 something, 15, in the DSH. They modeled the factoring model in CIDOC. So that would be a possible answer, which most probably does not fit to Francesco's ideas.
Exactly, because because I am also in the CRM SIG, and so I tried to propose to do this there, but I was told, and I think this is also what I think now. So if you ask me, I answer you. There is one class that Pasini and Bradley use, which is one of the only metadata class in the CRM, which is attribute assignment, E13. please never use it, because the CRM is not about this. If you want to do this, dear colleagues, you know better than me, use provenance ontology, Prov-O, because if you want to model, this is a very important question. The CRM models just factual information, not the way how you produce it. You know, you understand? You model just how the word was. And you do not model what sources say about the word. You have yourself to find a way of going from the sources to this factual information level. And this factual information level is modeled soundly, but is not for everything. Of course, you can reinterpret it and use it even for fiction. You could model fiction in CRM. You would have people, you would have things, and so on. But it is not the scope. It is not the domain. Yes, that's why it's important. And that's why, as Georg states very kindly, probably I disagree there with the factoid interpretation. The factoid is a very important model in the, which is, I know other people out of that which are modeling ancient documents and ancient prosopography. You cannot do this directly to know who the people are. You first have to have in the data all dimensions of everything. Good quality reproduction of the documents. And then first you merge this. I don't know if it's an answer, yes? So what I've modeled is factual information. To go from data to this and from this to knowledge, this is another issue. I didn't speak about this.
Okay. Any further questions? Julian, are your questions already answered, or can you now put them happy to have Francesco at your hand?
Yeah, really, because there are many new views on this topic. So yeah, it's quite difficult to start now with concrete questions. Perhaps one thing, we have one project which is from the linguistics, and there exists element linguistic object. But in this case, we would have 4 or 5 different linguistic objects. But now I'm working with a bit of workaround with type elements. So I say this is a linguistic object, has type, morpholexical type, and another which is a concept, and so on. So this is a point where I'm not sure if it would be better to create a own linguistic sub CIDOC ontology, for example.
Francesco, I'm now doing interpretation of Francesco because there are ontologies for linguistics.
Yes.
So I use CIDOC for linguistics if there are ontologies for the domain. Francesco.
Agree. I mean, of course, you can model, and there is now an extension, a new compatible model for modeling. There is also a paper which is evaluated in the Semantic Web Journal about text, yes? Model for the study of ancient text. But this is not the same, yes? It's not the same. And there's also in TI, there are some elements. I'm not totally wrong. But this is another issue.
Die heißt Olaf oder so ähnlich. Die linguistische Ontologie, die sie ein bisschen durchsetzen. In Frankfurt hat die, glaube ich, gemacht. Weißt du auch nicht. Die Linde müsste es wissen. Die ist nicht hier.
I think to say my own last word.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm very careful because, you know, in this kind of conferences and so on, you can have another question. I'm open to this but I have still 1 minute left to myself.
Yes,
so I don't want to go over the time. So my conclusion would be, I hope that besides the new aspects, and probably, as I told you, it's a journey, yes? And in this journey, this is the life journey. You are always students and experts. In some respect, in some regard. Yes, okay. This said, I'm also a student here. I'm discovering a lot of things. So don't be frightened. It comes with time. It's like TI. You understand the TI when you read 4 times the definitions. Then you begin to understand. Okay, other people are clever, more clever than me. They understand the first time. Okay, but this said, the CRM is a very robust way of conceptualizing our domain. But it does not all. So we have to extend it for historical sciences and add this social extension. And if we want to produce it, and I must acknowledge that I'm the editor there, I'm the very unfortunate and unhappy editor, I need the community because I cannot do it myself. So if you are interested, join the community. We will do trainings, we will discuss with you, and so on, because you cannot have an ontology if it is not a shared conceptualization. So thank you very much, Georg, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Francesco, for clearing it up and distinguishing clearly between what CIDOC CRM really is and others possibilities and lots of other ontologies, and showing a tool in which you can just type in a label term and find the classes, properties, etc. Because that's usually the main problem of everybody starting with the CIDOC CRM, and that there is no easy way to understand where to start and what to do. So listening to Stephen Stad is the really best recommendation, although it takes hours. And now a second best recommendation, the recording of Francesco's introduction. If Francesco will allow us to publish this, then I will make this as the introduction first point, access point. So Francesco, many, many thanks to your presentation from my side.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, yeah, the recording is somehow, the other one is